Thank you very much for listening to this week's talk on the Sedra of Devarim, the first Sedra in the book, the fifth book of the five books of the Torah, the book of Devarim. And it is also the Shabbos before Tisha B'Av, before the 9th of Av, which is on Thursday of the coming week. And we also have the name of this Shabbos. It's given the title of Shabbat Chazon, which literally translates as the Shabbos of the vision. It is the first word of the Haftarah, which is the portion from the prophets that we read at the end of every Sedra. And this time of year, this very exceptional time of year with so much past, present, and future that converge to help us on our journey towards redemption. And I think that we're translating the concept of Shabbos Chazon as the Shabbos of vision. The question I begin and I will end with is what is our vision? What is our plan to get us out of a cycle of coming round to Tisha B'Av every year, that we want to actually emerge from this commemoration and reliving of destruction, of tragedy that has from the time in the desert befallen our nation on Tisha B'Av. And so this Shabbos of vision, I think that we really need to concentrate to form in our minds and in our actions a vision, 2020 vision with hindsight and foresight, that we are able to really go forward with a plan, with concrete suggestions on how we can change and elevate this and fulfill this concept of vision. So looking at the Haftarah is going to be one way that we're going to be able to formulate this vision. Another way that we can understand what this vision needs to comprise is by looking at 5 different names that are given to the book of Devarim. And the third method of defining a vision will be to look and remember at the person Aaron HaKohen, whose yahrzeit is on the first day of Av, Rosh Chodesh Av, and we heard about that in last week's Sedra of Maseh. The Torah mentions that the exact date of the passing of Aaron HaKohen, and unique among all the people that we meet in the Torah, we know the exact date in the Torah's words of Aaron's passing. And this is something that I think that we can take a very pertinent message from Aaron and the exceptional character traits and his actions that we, as we remember him, as we remember his passing, but in so doing we perpetuate him. So the first thing to look at, actually in reverse order, because we read the Haftarah at the end of the Sedra. But since we call the Shabbos the Shabbos Chazon, it's really worthwhile to look at the message of the Haftarah, and not only the message, but this word Chazon, which I translated as vision, is usually interpreted in a positive way. It is not a vision of calamity and destruction. So we could almost ask, how appropriate is it to read it the Shabbos before Tisha B'Av? We understand reading something that is more encouraging and hopeful after Tisha B'Av, but as we are going towards the low point that we often feel Tisha B'Av is, then how can we have this very positive concept? And although if we look at the actual words of the Haftarah, we'll see that it starts off although it uses the word chazon, it starts off very in a very challenging way, and it says Shimu Shamayim Vahazini Eretz. Hear, O heavens, give ear, O earth. Ki Hashem diber, bonim gidalti veramamti. Hashem has spoken, Children I have raised and exalted, v'heim posh uvi, but they have sinned or rebelled against me. Yoda shar koinehu, an ox knows its owner, v'chamar evusba alav, and a donkey his master's trough. Yisrael lo yoda ami lo hisbonein. Israel does not know, my people does not perceive. Hoi goy choite keved ovon. Oh, woeful, sinful nation, people weighed down by iniquity. And so here, although we have the word chazon, clearly this is something that is being very accurately described as a nation who have not been following the commands of the Torah. And it continues further on that Hashem says, Lama li rov zivchehem yomar Hashem. Why do I need your numerous sacrifices? Says Hashem. Sovati olos elim v'chelev mereim. I am satiated with elevation offerings of rams, v'dam porim chavosim v'atudim, and the choicest of fattened animals, and the blood of bulls and sheep. Lo chafatzti, I don't want. So, as we commemorate the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, among other things, and the fact that we are no longer able to bring these offerings, Hashem is saying, if these offerings are not brought with the right intentions, if you do not have the right value system and justice, then I don't want these offerings. So for all of that, the Haftorah ends, Va'ashiva shoftayach korishona. Then I will return your judges as in earliest times. V'yo'atzayach kavatchila, and your counselors as at first. Acharei chein, after that, Yikore loch ir hatzedek. You will be called city of righteousness. Kiryat ne'emana, faithful city. Zion b'mishpat tipodeh. Zion shall be redeemed with justice. V'shoveha b'tzedakah, and her returnees with righteousness. So that is the end of the Haftorah, with all of the very harsh words of Hashem that we have at the beginning. We do end off, even before Tisha B'Av, we end off with this prophecy that Zion will be redeemed with justice. And so as we go into Tisha B'Av, we are reading on Shabbos this note of encouragement. And I think it's also telling to remember that the month of Av is called Menachem Av. And this means the comforting of Av. And really, the facts on the ground seem to speak of the very opposite of comfort. Yet we are with the seeds of hope that are sown in, with this idea that just like the prophecies of destruction, we have witnessed those prophecies come true, so that similarly the prophecies of redemption will come true as well. And the miracle of what we have merited to see in our time, that the Jewish people have returned to the land of Israel, and the fact that these prophecies are beginning to come true in front of our eyes, and with all of the challenges that we face. And I think that as we look around us in the news all over the world, what is happening in Israel, sometimes we feel like the Milchemet Achim, this infighting, called civil war in English, but much more accurately called war of brothers in the Hebrew, is really frightening and reminiscent of the stories of the infighting that occurred before the destruction of certainly the second Bet HaMikdash. But we just have to understand, we have to have our vision, we have to not be pulled down by what we can't change, but with our own vision, with our efforts, each and every individual one of us are able to effect changes that we perhaps don't realize, and that is incumbent upon us to do that. So I think that we have the first tool by looking at the Haftorah, by understanding that this concept of Chazon is a vision that contains with it the seeds of the return of the positive resolution and the fulfillment of the prophecies of the return and the rejuvenation of the Jewish nation. So the second aspect of understanding and trying to helping us to define our vision is to look at the 5 different names of what we refer to as the Book of Devarim. So most commonly it is known in Hebrew as Devarim. And we've commented that very often this is because it is the first word, actually the second in this case, and we'll come to that in a minute. But ironically, we meet Moshe Rabbeinu in the book of Shemos, and in the book of Shemos, when in the Sedra of Shemos, when Hashem is approaching Moshe Rabbeinu to take the job of leading the Jewish people out of Egypt, and informing Paro of the schedule, then we see that Moshe Rabbeinu responds in chapter 4 of Shemos, verse 10. Vayomer Moshe el Hashem, and Moshe said to Hashem, "Be Adoni, please, my master. Lo ish devarim anochi. I am not a man of words." And so it is almost ironical that Moshe Rabbeinu, and we have the medrash that Moshe Rabbeinu had a speech defect because as a baby he touched burning hot coals with his hand, and then he touched his mouth, and as a result he had a speech defect. And before he accepts the mission, this is something that Moshe Rabbeinu is acutely aware of, that he's going to have to use his words to persuade Paro to release the people, yet he is not a man of words. And we see that Moshe Rabbeinu has a whole book in the Torah called Words, which is his final address to his beloved nation. And I think that part of this message is that we, instead of thinking, what can I do? How can I stop the terrible problems, the serious problems that are happening to Jewish people in the land of Israel, all over the world, the horrific behavior of all sorts of descriptions. What can I possibly do? We see the example of Moshe Rabbeinu, who starts off thinking with justification that he's not a man of words, and yet he delivers. He is the speaker in the final book of the Torah, consisting of his words. And so that is the first name, Devarim. But actually, the book of Devarim is also known as Eile Devarim, which is the more accurate, the first 2 words, because I said we often use the first word that's a non-specific word, sort of a non-general word. That will be either the name of the Sedra or the book. But here, Eile is these are. So that is a very general word, and so we would normally go to the second word. But we find always that there is significance, deep significance in every letter and every grammatical construct in the Torah. And by saying these are the words, because we want to find the right words as we lead up to Tisha B'Av, we know that words can be the cause of terrible divisiveness. That the words, we're encouraged. The Torah tells us that if we see people doing things that are not right, we have the obligation to rebuke them. The Torah tells us, you shall surely rebuke your neighbor. Yet we need to do it in the right way. We need to find the right words, the right script. We need to find the right tone. And really, Eile Devarim. These words in the book of Devarim, we see that Moshe Rabbeinu is delivering this message of rebuke with love. And when he does rebuke the people, he will refer to it in ways that do not embarrass the people. He will refer to places where certain things happen rather than spelling out the events to the eternal embarrassment and shame of Bnei Israel. So the rebuke is handled sensitively. The rebuke is handled with love. It is nonetheless rebuke. There are words that need to be said, and we need to find that courage, that script, and we need to look at Eile Devarim, the words that are in this book of Devarim, and get our template from the message, the man, the means, the way that these words are delivered, so that this rebuke is accepted and whatever behavior was not right is corrected. Because although we exist as individuals, each one of us has an impact on the community as a whole. So that is the second name. That is the way we can try to formulate our vision. What is going to be the best way for me to handle these situations when I am faced with them? And how can I be a force for good, a force for change in a good way that people will accept and people will be enriched by, as opposed to causing divisiveness and pushing them further away. So that is, I think, that the message that we can get of the second name. And linked to that is another name of the book of Devarim called Sefer HaTochachos, which means the book of rebuke. And again, this is really crucial to the message, how we deliver that. And this is always going to come from a place of love. And this is why we can see the themes in the book of Devarim. Yes, they contain rebukes at very regular intervals, but it's got to be done in the right way. And the third name of the book of Devarim is the Sefer HaYashar, and this means the book of the straight. Literally, Yashar means straight, and there's a sense of justice and the doing the right thing. This is a pasuk. Comes from a pasuk in the Sedra of Re'eh, further into the book of Devarim, and that is chapter 12, pasuk 28. Shamar v'shamata es kol hadvarim ha'ela. Guard and listen to all of these words, asher anochi mitzabecha, that I am commanding you, leman yitav lecha, so that it shall be good for you, ulevanecha, and to your children acharecha, after you, ad olam, forever, kisaseh hatov v'hayashar b'einei Hashem Elokecha, that you will do what is good and what is proper in the eyes of Hashem, your God. And so we can see that we are calling this book Sefer HaYashar. We are striving to find this proper, straight way that is following the word of Hashem, doing what is right in the eyes of Hashem, using the words in Sefer Devarim as our barometer of how we find that path, how we found that true, proper, straight path. And then we have the final name of the book of Devarim is also known as Mishneh Torah, and that is the sort of the reason why we have the Latin word Deuteronomy, because Mishneh Torah means the repetition, as many of the precepts, although we have mitzvahs that appear for the first time in the book of Devarim, there is a recap of there is also recap of what has gone on before in the Torah. And in this summary, plus the new mitzvahs, Moshe Rabbeinu is teaching us that it is by constantly going over these concepts, this way of life. It's not something that I've read last year, I read yesterday, and I can just put it down. It is this idea of repeating something, keeping it at the forefront of your mind, that we are accustomed to doing things physically on a daily basis. We won't say, I brushed my teeth yesterday, I ate yesterday, so I don't need to do that again today. And we need to find that parallel with our spiritual levels, that we are going to be able to, with this repetition, we are reinforcing it. We are internalizing the messages on an even deeper level, and in so doing, we are better able to formulate our vision. And the third source of the vision is to look at the way, the personality, the actions of our Aaron HaKohen, and to sort of see that this is really something that combines the two aspects of Ohev Shalom, of Bein Odom La Mokom, and then Bein Odom La Chavero. We start with Bein Odom La Chavero, there's relations, interpersonal relations, that Aaron was so passionate. He was the one who loved peace, but he didn't just love it. It wasn't a cerebral concept. It wasn't an academic study. He Rodev Shalom. He pursued it. He took practical measures to try to bring people together, to try to resolve disputes, to enable people to find the common ground. It was something that he had to work hard on, and in so doing, he would put himself to one side, focus on really uniting individuals within the community, and in so doing, uniting the whole community. But then it didn't stop there either, because he had such deep, true love for every individual and for the people as a whole, that he had to carry on. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avos tells us, "Umakorvan la Torah," that he brought them close to the Torah. And he is really showing us that we are able, in this way, to, through our love of people, it is a completely logical sequence that we will want to share with them. We will want to help them enrich their lives with the truth, with the beauty, with the wisdom of Torah. And really, by focusing on the great man Aaron HaKohen, and especially at the time of his passing, and really following his example and bringing it into our everyday lives. So I think in this way, we have the challenge of finding our vision. And if each of us choose one aspect of interpersonal relationships that we are going to say, I'm going to make this my cause celebra. I'm going to put my focus and my energies into enhancing, making the performance of this mitzvah especially something that I will focus on. And similarly, Bein Odom Lamakom, my relationship with Hashem, those aspects of our way of life that deal with my connection with my Creator. That is another aspect of the total, of the whole. And by doing that, I think we are really able to have a vision and to bring that vision down to earth, and please God, making it a real prospect that the prophecy of Tisha B'Av becoming a Yom Tov, a Moed, and celebrating not the destruction but the rebuilding of the Beis Hamikdash speedily and in our time. Thank you very much for listening, and wishing you Shabbat Shalom.